Starter Pokemon are some of the most memorable Pokemon of all. They are your first Pokemon in most games, they get a lot of screen time in the anime, and are just on average strong Pokemon. Now, for Pokemon filling this big of a role in the franchise, they need to look good. And while we have some true fan favorites like Charizard, Blaziken, and Greninja, we've also had some starters that aren't quite as popular. While they may be the favorites for some people, starters like Meganium, Inteleon, and Quaquaval are widely recognized as less popular starters. This is usually due to either being weak in battle, being in fewer games, or because their designs may be underwhelming. So today I'm going to be doing something fun. I'm going to redesign my least favorite final starter from each generation, all the way from Gen 1 up until Gen 9, including Hisui. This video will be in two parts, and in this one, we're starting with Gen 1 through 5. In some generations, my least favorite starter was an easy pick, while in others it was very hard. For example, in Gens 3 and 4, I think all three starters are well designed, while in Gens 2 and 5, I think one of them is a lot worse than the other two. Now, my choices in this video simply reflect my opinion. Which designs are good and which are bad are completely subjective, and someone's least favorite is going to be somebody else's favorite. But now, let's get started. Now, starting with Gen 1, I made a very controversial pick for sure, Charizard. Now, despite being a true fan favorite, Charizard is my choice of redesign for Gen 1. Not because I think it's a bad design, but simply because I think it could have looked so much cooler with just minor changes. They wanted to give us a big fire-breathing dragon, but then they gave it a belly and tiny T-Rex arms, kinda making it look lazy and less powerful. I don't think we need to change much, but give it some bigger arms, more dragon-like ears, and change its color to look more like Charmeleon's color. Throw on a pattern inspired by the clone Charizard from the first movie, and we have our design. In the end, we get something that clearly is still Charizard, but looks a lot stronger and more menacing now. The design may look more like a pseudo-legendary maybe, but I think that's fine for a final starter that resembles a dragon. Now on to Generation 2, the one that had the most clear choice of the first 5 generations, which is Meganium. This may not come as a surprise, but Meganium is just simply underwhelming. It has the most simple design of all grass starters, and it arguably is the weakest starter of all time in battle. It honestly looks more cute than capable, and not even really looking like a final starter in my opinion. Now, I'm a big fan of Bayleaf, so I wanted to take Meganium more in that direction. I like the leaf on Bayleaf's head, so I kept that, and I made it look bigger and longer and gave it a more dynamic pose to make it look like it can actually move. This gives us a design that looks more like an evolution of Bayleaf, but to me, that is the way to go. You could change the colors on the neck leaves, or give them a pattern or something, but I just couldn't make up my mind, so I just kept them green for now. Feel free to change that if you want. Now on to Generation 3, the generation that, in my opinion, may just have the best trio of starters of all of them. I like all three actually, and I always struggle to choose which one to pick in the games. Now, I just love Blaziken and Swampert so much that my choice just had to be Sceptile, even though I quite like Sceptile as well. Now, I've always liked Grovyle more than Sceptile, so I wanted to make it more like Grovyle while still keeping the general aesthetic of Sceptile. I made it lean forward to look like it's ready to charge towards you, and kept Grovyle's head leaf and made the tail less bulky to represent Sceptile's high speed stat better. I always wanted it to look stronger too, because I've always thought Blaziken and Swampert just looked a little stronger than Sceptile. In the end, we get a design that I absolutely love. If Sceptile looked like this, it would be my favorite starter in Hoenn for sure. It almost looks like a Velociraptor with a Sceptile skin on it, and it resembles the highest speed stat a lot better now. Grovyle looks very fast, so I think Sceptile should look even faster. Now on to Generation 4. Another generation that I think has a very strong trio of starter designs. I know a lot of people would probably pick Empoleon for this one, but I chose Infernape. I think Torterra's design is phenomenal, and I also quite like Empoleon. Infernape, I think, looks a little too skinny and weak for what it is, and I think I can do better. I wanted to make it more buff, because while Infernape is fast, it's not that fast, and it is very much supposed to be an offensive monster. I wanted it to look more dangerous and primitive, so I think the color scheme should be more striking, and its limbs more oversized to represent the fighting type better. It looks completely different now, but honestly I like this a lot better. It definitely looks stronger now. But now on to Generation 5, And this was by far the hardest choice for this first part. While Gen 5 is possibly my favorite generation overall, I do think the starter trio is one of the weaker ones. Now, I like Superior, but I think both Samurott and Embor could have been a lot better. And in the end, I chose Embor, because Samurott at least looks cool in its own way. I've never been a fan of the chubby build with skinny arms and no neck that Embor has, so I wanted to see what it would look like with a body more like Pig Knight's. Now, with a pig Pokemon, I think you need to either make it very cool, or just own it and make it funny looking. Now, I kept the round body, gave it oversized arms since it's a fighting type, and gave it a more macho pose. And while it did end up looking like an Easter egg, I actually think I like the design more now. It was definitely not my favorite of the designs that I made for this video, but I'm happy with the group as a whole. And that was my redesigns of my least favorite starters from Gens 1 through 5. Now, if you like what I do, please consider liking the video and subscribing. Also, check out my Instagram and follow the rest of my journey as Fakemon artist, and maybe leave a comment below and tell me what you think. Now, part 2 will be Gens 6 through 9, as well as Hisui. So, stay tuned, and I will see you guys next time.